Right, here we go. I've said I want to do a bit more karting this year, and this is the first of many videos showing my progress from an alright karter to someone who's hopefully going to be setting top 10 times on the leaderboard. Because as you can see at the moment, I'm well off the pace, and I need all the practice that I can get. So fingers crossed you like this one, because there's going to be plenty more like it. With that being said, let's get into it. Right, let's just get all of the excuses for me not getting anywhere near my personal best out of the way. Today there are 16 people on the grid. I've never been on track with more than 12, and even that felt jam-packed, so the chances of us getting some clean laps in without yellow flags is slim, and then those being quick, even slimmer. We're at TeamSport Stockton if you haven't seen the previous couple of videos that I've made here, and it is far colder than the last time I was here as well, so that polished concrete downstairs isn't going to offer up the same amount of grip as it did in the summer. Driver excuses out of the way, let's meet the grid. So there were two separate parties sharing the track today. There's my group, which is a bunch of 10 lads, and another group of 6 randomers, and I'll get to know a couple of those later on, which was fun. In our group we have George in Kart 1. George drives a Cayman GT4 and has done a decent amount of karting before as well, so he's definitely one to watch. Next up is Liam in Kart 4. Liam drives a 𝙁𝙊𝙄𝙉𝙊𝙆 van that's had a brake light out for 6 months, so he's definitely one to watch out for as well, but for other reasons. No karting experience either. In Kart 5 we have Mark. Mark drives a 420D and hits the curb every time he goes through a McDonald's drive-through. He hasn't ever been karting before either, so let's see how he gets on with a kart that has a wider back end that you can't see. Then we have Jack in Kart 6. He's just a friend of a friend who's came along, so I don't really want to take the mick out of him in case he's a psychopath, but I'm sure he's a nice lad. There's me in Kart 9, Josh, who drives a Corsa D limited edition in Kart 11. He's built like a racing snake, so in theory he should be quite quick. Sam is in Kart 12, a typical Golf GTD owner, so expect to see vape bellowing out of his helmet when we go past him. Ryan is in Kart 13, a big F1 fan, so he should know the fundamentals of racing a bit better than most. He drives around in a white C-Class diesel, and he's just an all-round handsome bastard. Morris finds himself in Kart 16. He's got a Porsche Macan, so he's the talk of the school run. Again, another big F1 fan, so we shouldn't get too much funny business from him. And finally, we've got James in Kart 19. James is the guy who owns the engine swap Caterham that I've made a video on before, so he's used to driving more powerful go-karts than this at home. He's brought his own racing boots as well, but he's at a massive disadvantage because he's racing with man flu. So the majority of our group either have zero karting experience or very little, so if they can do a 46 or 47 second lap time, then they'll be doing really well. As we left the pits, it was clear that the other group of 6 we were sharing the track with were also of mixed ability as well. And initially I felt a bit sorry for the poor lass who was leading us out because it was clearly her first time doing this. Bit more on her later on though. Anyway, the lights turned green and we were off. Straight away I could tell that this fella in the number 20 kart was fairly quick, and if I was going to get past him I'd need to have a bit of luck with traffic or he'd have to make a mistake. Because on a track like this you can sit the kart on the racing line all the way around, and unless you're considerably quicker it's difficult to get past. Now there's always a yellow flag at the start of the session just to make sure you understand that you need to slow down for it, but because of the amount of people on track who'd never been karting before, you can expect to see those yellows a lot more. As we finished off lap 2, we lapped Kart 14 for the first time, and then the cat and mouse stuff with Kart 20 began. I'd be sat on his bumper, and then there'd be a yellow flag or a little bit of traffic that interfered with me trying to get past. Moving on to lap 5, and we were lapping Kart 14 for the second time, but more importantly we were catching up to the back of the pack. Now I could tell from the first few laps that the grip downstairs just wasn't the same as it was before, probably to do with the fact that it was freezing outside. But upstairs was no different really, and although we were getting the occasional yellow flag, I was still flying up there. I absolutely love that section of track. As we rolled up onto the back of the pack for the first time, I decided to have a quick look down the inside of the hairpin, but it was never going to happen. And I thought I'd blown my shot of sticking with number 20 whilst pinging through the traffic, but when he made the move on Josh, that pushed the racing snake wide and I slithered through. Going into the next corner, I decided to go for it as he went quite wide on the entry, but he had a better exit, and going into the following left-hander he gave me a cheeky nudge to send me onto the slippery stuff. I thought I'd lost him again going down the ramp, but I just managed to find enough space on the outside of Liam to edge past before we were hit with another yellow, just as it was getting fun as well. Liam obviously forgot that you can't overtake on yellow flags, and he went flying past everyone. but he also forgot that the track narrows after this hairpin, so I sent him to the Shadow Realm for being a divvy. After what felt like an eternity under yellows, we were racing again, and 20 got super lucky on the restart, getting past Mark and number 14, no bother at all. I did get pinched trying to sneak up the inside, but I just had to send it around the outside on that double F where there's generally no grip to get past them. And then it was a case of reeling in number 20 again, which I did in about half a lap. Sam, being the absolute gent that he is, must have noticed that number 20 had gone past him and pretty much gave me a free pass on the down ramp to get past him. But neither of us expected the line Kart 20 took going into the hairpin, and as you can hear, Sam wasn't happy. I tried sneaking past him on the restart, but he can't have noticed that I was there and he squeezed me into the wall. But with 4 karts in front of us, I actually saw an opportunity to get past. Until about 3/4 of a lap later, where I got stuck behind 2 of those randomers driving side by side like those annoying cyclists that you get. So I just had to wait. Again, it's just a matter of luck when you have so many people on the track as to whether or not you can make an overtake using the traffic. But I was sure I'd get my time, and after picking off a kart that was separating us on the hairpin that was catching most people out, and overtaking James, who had just clipped his back end on the tyres, slowing him right down, I was back on 20's arse. Ryan gave him a bit of a bash turning into that long hairpin on the bottom floor, which sent him wide, so I snuck through as well. And that set me up really nicely as I was right behind 20 heading up the ramp. What happened next was the little bit of luck that I'd been waiting for. He went wide as he had been doing on that right-hander for most laps, and I snuck through on the inside. But there's Mark in exactly the right spot for me, stopping number 20 from using his momentum around the outside to come back at me. Job done. Now, I finally had a little bit of clean air to see what time we could set under these conditions, but as I'll show you at the end of the session, we were miles off the pace. I caught this T-bone off Liam on George, which he swears was an accident. Not so sure about that. But it G'd George right up, so I couldn't wait to catch him. And after a cheeky switch back on Liam, and a little bit of sliding from George, I was right on him, when this happened. So, what happened there then, Luke? Seemingly nothing, right? Well, George tried to overtake number 14, which you might remember from earlier. Ended up giving her a little bit of a nudge on the outside, and well, I snuck through on the inside, scot-free with George firmly in my back pocket. Now, I did flick him the V since I got past him so easily, but I was only returning the favour from earlier on in the lap. What happened when I returned to the pits though? Well, it was just a bit daft really. The lass in the number 14 car had decided in her own head that I'd hit her with such force that the marshal had actually came over to check on her. Well, if that had happened, firstly, I'd have apologised straight away, and secondly, I would have been black flagged. So anyway, her boyfriend wasn't very happy at all, and started kicking off because the story that he'd been told was that she'd been rammed up the arse, oi, and then I'd turn around and swore at her. I did apologise for flicking the V's even though they weren't aimed at her, they were aimed at George. But the apology was not accepted, and I could see I was fighting a losing battle. Go-karting is not worth having a scrap over. Grow up. Anyhow, this is how we finished at the end of the first session. Me and George topping it with a really slow time in comparison to our fastest. James with man flu was the best of the rest of our group, and Liam was bringing up the rear, but we were soon backing him for the second session. Now, my kart hadn't been used for the last 15 minutes or so it had cooled right off. Luckily though, it didn't take too much to get it back up to temperature, although not everyone coped so well on the cold rubber, which inevitably brought out the yellows for the 50th time. Jack was in a bit of a blind spot when it flicked back to green, so I made light work of him, and because I'd started at the back of the pack this time around, I thought instead of trying to set the fastest lap, I was going to experiment with overtaking people in places where you wouldn't normally dream about. Although, Morris made it super easy by leaving the door open into the long hairpin, and this isn't the last time I do him in the same corner. As the yellows came out again, the boys ahead had a quick game of bumper cars, with Mark getting absolutely pummeled in the middle, just how he likes it. Which did lead to them getting a warning downstairs by the marshal, and just watching these two slide around ahead of me so much I thought it was only a matter of time before I'd see one facing the wrong way. Lo and behold, half a lap later, and there goes James. I'm not too sure who took over the number 14 car in the second session, but it obviously wasn't the same person who was driving it in the first. But I seemed to find grip that no one else could down on that long hairpin downstairs, making light work of the new number 14. Initially, I thought that this red flag was because of the lad who'd spun out in front of me, but actually, remember when we saw Mark drifting up the up ramp a few laps ago? Well, he ran out of talent. When we eventually got going again, I was right behind Liam, who'd started to slash his lap times after a pretty shit effort in the first session, to be honest. but he bogged down a little bit too much coming out of the hairpin at the top of the ramp, so it was a really easy pass down into the first big braking zone. Sam had upped his pace as well in the second session and all. He was putting his car in all the right spots and crucially not losing momentum through the slower corners. But just as he made a slight mistake, the track was blocked by none other than Josh and Mark, who was facing the wrong way again. While we were under yellows, Sam caught me firing the finger guns out, so he made sure to fire some ammo back, but I had to put him in his place when the green flag dropped again. Caught him kipping there, didn't I? It was chock-a-block up here, and even though I did want to keep doing some weird overtakes, I also wanted to get the fastest lap too, so I needed to get back in front. Again, I found grip on the inside of that corner that everyone seemed to be struggling with to get past number 10, and on the following lap we did Morris again on the same corner. Deja vu, innit? The last person we had to get past before we had the chance of setting a fast lap was Ryan, and just like Liam earlier on in the session, he bogged down at the top of the hairpin and I got him into the braking zone. But then I bogged down coming out of that hairpin and I had to resort to humping the kart to get a little bit of traction. I think I got 2 laps in before catching up to Jack, who might have let me past, which was nice. He can definitely come again. And then 1 lap later the yellows were back out because Liam, who was doing quite well actually, had spun out on that pesky hairpin. It was catching nearly everyone out. I tried letting Mark back through since I overtook him under yellows, but you can't hear jack shit with 16 karts blazing around this track, so I just booted it. Another big gap had opened up in between karts and I thought I was going to have one last go of setting a quick lap time. But the checkered flag dropped and we headed back into the pits. After that second session then, most people improved by quite a considerable amount, so everybody was looking forward to seeing how quick they could go in the third and final one. Unfortunately though, I was already in the kart when I realised that I'd forgot to change the GoPro battery, so this is literally all I caught before it died. Top content creator, aren't I? Schoolboy error. And I missed some proper juicy clips as well. I'll throw all of our best times up on the screen now, and if you want to get involved in the next one of these, which might not be at Stockton, it could be at Newcastle or Leeds, then you can either join my Facebook group, or drop me a follow over on Instagram and keep your eyes peeled for any updates. I hope you enjoyed the video, drop it a like if you did, subscribe to the channel for more car and karting content, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!